If you've listened to any previous episodes of this podcast, you may have heard me say over and over again, meditation is not self-help. It's a spiritual practice. It will have all sorts of everyday conventional positive effects, but it has effects that go far beyond becoming better at anything or improving anything about yourself. And weirdly and interestingly, I think the power comes from the simplicity of the meditation technique itself. It is literally just sitting there. The word that is used in the Zen tradition, shikantaza, I hope I pronounced that correctly, means just sitting. And that is like literal. You're not just sitting in order to anything. You are just sitting. Don't tell anyone. That's all you're doing when you're meditating. You are literally not doing anything. At the same time, from this simplicity, profound consequences begin to show themselves. You become perhaps more patient. You feel more deeply. You see more clearly. You become more confused by what you thought you knew, which may actually be the best sign of all. And at the same time, you become more genuine, more confident, more authentic. It's very interesting. It's hard to remember this. When you're sitting down, it's something on your to-do list you want to cross off. Fair enough. And secretly or not so secretly, we continue to look for results, which are never to be found while you're meditating. Rather, they become apparent in your post-meditation practice, meaning the rest of your life. Nonetheless, how do we keep this view that we're practicing for spiritual, post-conventional reasons without getting weird and woo-woo and so forth? So it really helps if your meditation practice is approached as a ritual rather than a task. Now, to approach something as a ritual, again, you don't have to get weird or woo-woo unless you want to. Please wear your damn wizard hats, wear your flowing garments, go ahead. However, I think there are more expeditious ways to signal your openness to the spiritual journey, and they have nothing to do with how you think or what you feel. Rather, they have to do with how you actually approach your practice, the environment that you establish for your practice, and the steps you make, like in the physical world and within yourself as you approach your practice. So I'll explain exactly what I mean. And this is something I learned some years ago when I was on a long retreat myself as a student. I was not a teacher yet. And this was in the Colorado Rockies, so it was quite remote. While I was there, some people showed up just to spend a few days there, and they happened to be musicians, and they happened to be extraordinary musicians. One of them happened to be the recent winner of the Pablo Casals competition, and as such was gifted Pablo Casals' cello for the entire year to follow. So he was there in the Colorado Rockies, experimenting with meditation. His cello was there. Some friends were there who were percussionists of classical music, and they fell in love with this retreat center. They would also practice in their room, and my room happened to be across from there, so I could hear this extraordinary cello playing off and on throughout the day. It was quite lovely. And at one point they said, we, classical musicians of great renown, would like to make a recording somewhere here while we're here, and then y'all can sell it and keep the proceeds. We just want to give something back to this extraordinary place, which was then called Shambhala Mountain Center, but is now called Drala Mountain Center. So somehow I got hired, quote unquote, to be the producer of this recording. I guess I don't know why, because I love music. I used to work in the music business. Somehow I was asked if I could help create this recording, and I said yes. And it was back in the day, so there was no take out your iPhone and let's make the recording. Rather, we had a 24-track mobile unit come up the mountain, and we spent time looking for the ideal place to make the recording. And it turned out that the best acoustics were on the third floor of a building called the Great Stupa of Dharmakaya, which liberates upon seeing. That's actually its whole name. A stupa is a building constructed in memory of a great teacher. And in this particular stupa, the first floor was open to all. It's also quite amazing. Please go if you ever can. There's a 25-foot Buddha in there, incredible tile work, beautiful paintings. It's an extraordinary place. And then on the second and third floors, equally extraordinary from an artistic and Dharma perspective, but off limits. Unless you're doing this kind of practice, then you could go to the second floor. If you're doing this other kind of practice, please head on up to the third floor. None of us were doing those, quote, more advanced practices. However, it was determined that the third floor had the best acoustics. So we got permission to respectfully and carefully make this recording on that floor. And as the preparations were being made, I became concerned. Well, can we do that? Are we going to mess up, the good juju that's been accumulating there for years and years? How do we do this in a respectful way? It so happened that my own meditation teacher, Sam, was there for other reasons. We were taking a walk together. We were actually circumambulating the stupa, which just means walking in a circle. And I said to him, is this cool? How do we keep the sacred nature of the space while making this recording? And without missing a beat, he said, oh, no problem. You just do 3 things. You make offerings, you request blessings, and dedicate the merit. That's all he said about it, but I knew what those 3 steps were, having done them myself for many years, and I continue to. So I want to share them with you in brief before we get to our musical after party, which I'm very excited about, as always. The first step, and you don't have to be a Buddhist, you don't have to be circumambulating a stupa to do these things, but the first step, make offerings, is the way you enter your practice. So if you look at a Buddhist shrine room or a temple or church of any kind, basically, usually there's a table in the front with things on it, like candles or flowers or incense and so on. Those are offerings. And if you like, you can have a little table with such things. But more important than those objects is the sense of offering, the gesture of generosity that you make before you sit down to practice. By offering something to your practice, to God, to the highest wisdom, to nature, to whatever you choose to offer to. And the best thing to offer, or the most reliable thing, I could say, is your own heart. How do you feel right now? Who are you right now? What are your joys? What are your worries? Offer them. Have the sense of, I give this. I put down my burden, not as a way of offloading it, but as a way of contributing it to wisdom greater than my own. You can offer anything you like. Parenthetically and semi-hilariously, I think, I was on a meditation Zoom room this morning with my great friend Michael Carroll, who was going to lead the meditation. And as we were getting settled and just chatting, the two of us, he spilled his coffee. And he jumped up and he started cleaning it, and his wife came in and they started cleaning it together. And where it was spilled was in front of a statue of the Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva of compassion. So my first thought was, oh, better get that coffee up off your wooden table. And my next thought was, maybe you just made an offering to Avalokiteshvara. That's a very cavalier way of looking at it, but I'm trying to make the point that you can offer anything. It doesn't have to be beautiful. It doesn't have to be your best. It can be what's happening in the moment, which usually is the contents of your heart and mind. Good offerings. Second step, request blessings, means you think about who you're making this offering to or what you're making it to. So you make offerings to those figures that you hold in the highest esteem. And I don't just mean like people you like or people you respect. People or beings who, for you, embody greatness, depth, profundity, love, the most profound insight imaginable, so profound that you know and I know I can't even understand it, but I know it's the real deal. In some traditions, like mine, for example, this would be called your lineage, your teachers. Now, if you don't have such a lineage, although you may, you request the blessings of that which you hold in the highest regard. And the request is not, please do this for me, or I'd really like that. Could you please help me? The request is something along the lines of, please show me how to be more like you. Please help me to see what you see. Please help me to go beyond what I think is possible. So whatever is beyond what you think is possible is inconceivable because it's beyond what you think. So you can still request the inconceivable. Then you would do your practice, your meditation practice or whatever your practice is, 5 minutes, 55 minutes, up to you. And at the end is the third step, which is called to dedicate the merit, which means you rouse some sense, once again, of what happened during your practice. Maybe you fell asleep. Maybe you saw ultimate reality, maybe some of both. And you rouse the aspiration that whatever you experienced can somehow benefit all beings. So your meditation practice is not for you alone. It is for all beings, which includes you. So we don't want to hold it too tightly or keep checking to see, is it still there? Because when you give something away, it's not there anymore. So you don't have to check. But you make this other kind of offering that your practice can benefit everyone. And that's a beautiful way to end. So between these three steps, make offerings, request blessings, dedicate the merit. You signal the wish to preserve the sacred nature of this practice, which, as sacred as it may be, that's how simple it is. Beyond concept, actually. So, I guess I'll just leave it at that. I hope that's useful. If you have any questions about this, any reflections, notions of various kinds, please let me know. I'd be happy to answer whatever I can answer. You can DM me on Instagram, or you can find a link to a form somewhere in the show notes. Be great to hear from you. And now for the music. So the song that I want to play for you today is called Double Trouble from the great, epic guitar player and vocalist Otis Rush. He is my favorite of the blues guitar players, of which there are many to choose from. And a couple things about Otis, and a couple things about the song Double Trouble, and then a couple things about me and Otis Rush. First, Otis Rush, who died about 10 years ago, he had a very unique sound. And at least part of the reason was because he, as a left-handed guitar player, played a right-handed guitar upside down when he was coming up and learning to play guitar. Because he grew up in Mississippi, not a lot of left-handed guitars lying around. He saw a guitar, apparently, and like, I got to play that thing. And he played it with the E strings at the bottom. So it gave him this incredibly stinging sound. And when you hear the song Double Trouble, I think you'll hear what I'm talking about. Just very unusual and completely right. You would never listen to it and go, I think someone's playing guitar upside down. You would just hear this haunting, dark, otherworldly, cutting emotion. And by dark, I don't mean evil. I just mean pain. Blues is about pain, to some degree at least. And that note, no pun intended, is struck perhaps most profoundly to these ears by the great Otis Rush. The song Double Trouble is very dirge-like. I say that in a complimentary way. And weirdly, interestingly, tiny point, I can't quite figure out what the first words are. It starts out, he starts out singing something like false love, although different people hear other things, not in a spooky way. It's a little unclear. And if you even Google Double Trouble by Otis Rush lyrics, you'll see most versions of the lyrics start with false love question mark, like not quite sure what he's saying. And I once spent probably 45 minutes on the phone with my great friend and the great guitar player, Derek O'Brien, who made the podcast music for this very podcast. We were debating, what is he saying? We talked about it for a really long time, and we're going to go with false love. Anyway, I know Derek from way back in the day. We were both connected with the blues club Antone's. He's a great guitar player in the house band. He still is a great guitar player. I was a bartender, and when Otis Rush would come to town, Derek would go pick him up, and I often went with him. And so we'd get him from the airport, and he was silent. He was somber. He was kind and friendly, but he was like, I'm staying within myself. So he wanted to stop at some convenience store to get some food for his hotel room. He'd go in there, wouldn't come out except for showtime, go back in, wouldn't come out till he had to leave for the airport. Just a very solitary person. That's my assumption. I don't really know what was going on in there. But I know I loved being around him. I loved listening to him, and I loved just sitting by him because he had this gravitas minus any kind of pretension that I found very magnetizing. I'm very lucky to have gotten to meet him. In fact, before I started working at Antone, like I got the job one day and I wasn't supposed to start for 2 days. And a day in between, I went to Antone's and Otis Rush was playing. I'd never heard of him. I'd never heard him. But I was transfixed. I don't mean to sound trite. And it was like getting high. Like I'm entering some kind of world with this musician, with this way of playing, with this incredible voice that I'm never going to find anywhere else. And indeed, I believe I was correct. So he's not just a great guitar player in a very simple, penetrating style, not a lot of notes, no wanking. I don't like that in guitar players or music in general. But he's also an incredible singer. Incredible singer. So we're going to get to the song in a minute, but there are two other points I want to make about it. One is that I learned many years after first hearing the song that there's a second guitar player on this track, and that guitar player is Ike Turner from Ike and Tina Turner and many nefarious stories. And I was told by someone who would know that the weirdest guitar fills, wow, it almost sound like cat meows or strange, what is that sound, are from Ike Turner. So I don't know, but I present you that factoid for your consideration. And then the song Double Trouble was so influential on a young man, a great guitar player named Stevie Ray Vaughan, that when he put his first band together, he named it Double Trouble, Stevie Ray Vaughan and Double Trouble. And that was the name of his band throughout until his tragic early passing. And the double of the trouble referred to Stevie and a vocalist who was in that band for a short time in the beginning named Lou Ann Barton, a great Texas singer. She never wanted to be called a blues singer. She was like, I sing rock and roll. And so we will acknowledge that great rock and roll singer. And finally, in those early days, for a very short period, there was a second guitar player in Double Trouble, and that was Derek O'Brien, the creator of the theme music for this very podcast. So we have come full circle. Please, please, please give your respect to Otis Rush, Double Trouble, the great darkness that gives rise to so much extraordinary music. and those artists who have the courage to play without pretension. So, till next time, and if you like this podcast, I have to say these things, it's podcast law. Please share it with someone who you think might also enjoy it. Please leave us a review somewhere, however such things may be done. And if you want to practice with me more closely, please head over to the Open Heart Project and sign up for our free newsletter, openheartproject.com, and I'll send you a meditation video every week. Okay, thank you.
I lay awake at nights, false love, I'm just so troubled. It's hard to keep a job, laid off, I'm having double trouble. But hey, hey, yeah, they say you can make it if you try. This generation is millionaires. It's hard for me to keep decent clothes to wear. Your love got me walking, baby, when I have no place to go. Bad luck and trouble taking me, I have no money to show. But hey, hey, to make it you got to try. Baby, that's no lie. Yes, some of this generation is millionaires. It's hard for me to keep decent clothes to wear.